Now, we are going to get into the meat and potatoes of the show. We are going to jump into a black box letter. Can you believe it? It's been a minute since we've done a black box.
Shit.
We're going to do that tonight. So our black box letter for tonight comes from Marquise. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. When you look at it, you tell me how you pronounce it.
Marquise, what's good, bro?
Marquise says, "What's going on, brothers? I don't know if any of you guys have seen this article, but I read this a few days ago, and I have to tell you that I felt it in my bone marrow. I'm not going to lie to you. Since the pandemic, I very rarely spoken to my bros, even those bros that we typically pre-pandemic would go out to a game or play basketball together. What makes it worse is that I broke up with my girlfriend in late February, right before the pandemic and the lockdown. So I've been pretty much isolated. It's been the most awkward and trying time of my life. Do any of you feel the same way or know guys who are in the same spot? Thought that this would be a great topic for the show. Thanks for taking my letter, Marquise." So now the article that Marquise is referring to is an article that was posted in the Washington Post sometime in November, right? And it says that the pandemic has forced men to really take a look at their relationships. So no games, no game days, no bars. The pandemic is forcing some men to realize they need deeper friendships. And I thought it was extremely interesting, this breakdown of how men interact on a friend level with other men. So check this out. For more than a decade, psychologists have written about the friendship crisis facing many men. One of 2006 analysts published in the American Psychological Review found that while Americans in general have fewer friends outside the family than they used to, that's an interesting point. Young, white, educated men have lost more friends than other groups. Male friendships are often rooted in shoulder to shoulder, quote unquote, shoulder to shoulder interactions, such as watching a football game or playing video games. While women's interactions are more face to face, such as grabbing a coffee or getting together for a glass of wine, said Godfrey Grief, a professor at the University of Maryland School of Social Work, who wrote this book. Now, Grief also said he surveyed about 100 men, and they most often socialize with friends. 80% of the men said sports, either watching or participating in them together, is how they bonded. So I thought it was extremely interesting to see that there's this dilemma facing men, and specifically Black men, because we have these stigmas that we're already dealing with. So how do you form a friendship or utilize a friendship when you haven't been able to properly cultivate or culture a friendship? Go ahead, Crush. Go ahead and start us off, man.
Yeah, this is a very intriguing topic. And you know, I definitely think it has a large part to do with the stage you're at in your life. I think, you know, that affects your outlook on the world and the kind of outlooks and belief systems that you feel aligned with. But you know what the article alludes to, for men, to the need for deeper friendships. I can see why that would feel that way. How to even address that? I mean, I know I look at the friendships I've had for more than 10, 15, 20 years, and I know what I feel like they're rooted in. They know my family well, my parents, my sister. They're familiar with us over the holidays and things like that. And you guys know I'm not a big sports head, so we bonded over different things like music and other things. Not that I wasn't not watching sports with them like that, but we definitely connected on other levels. Deeper friendships with men, with the dudes that I've known over the years. I think I would say, I hate to say it, but sometimes it takes certain traumatic experiences to kind of make you realize what kind of man you're standing next to, and how they can sympathize and empathize with you when you're going through something. Like I know I dealt with that this year when my mother passed, You know, there were brothers that were really there for me, you know, and these are guys who, you know, one of those guys were incarcerated for more than a decade, and he knew my mom well, and so I would definitely call that a deep friendship, you know. Um, you know how that was cultivated. Unfortunately, it was some unfortunate circumstances. But in that regard, I guess it would have to be the kind of experiences you're sharing. And I guess with women, it's more intentional. With dudes, it's kind of just happens.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think men set out to have intentional, you know, serious experiences with other men per se. Like, you know, I don't know if that maybe I'm wrong, but you know, the memorable, impactful experiences I've had with my brothers, you know, it was never something planned. It just kind of happened, you know. So I don't know. It's kind of a tough question to answer. I guess it's asking us to really challenge ourselves in certain ways socially with each other in a way that can only be healthy, you know. So you know, I'm not sure if I answered the question in full. I think I tried, but yeah. I think that's where I have to come from with that.
Go ahead, Al.
A number of thoughts pop into my mind, man. One of the thoughts is when I read the article, I hated that the sample size was so small. For one, it was only 100 men. That's a small sample size to come up with.
Yeah, that's
So I don't fault you. I see.
Come up with it. Yeah, it
that's
comes with that's a
those are grad school numbers.
small sample size. But I think, and it wasn't race specific, if I recall, because I think
Yeah.
there's a different dynamic. I think they did mention how white males, their relationships are. Fuck that, I don't care. But with black men, I think it's a different dynamic that we deal with when it comes to building relationships between each other. Most of our relationships with black men, if we look at our male relationships, they're usually relationships that we've had over a number of years. It's not too many men, black men, I would say, over the age of 35, who have a lot of new male friends. Most of their male friends are male friends that they've had for some years because there's a level of comfortability and the keyword familiarity there. For one, for black men, there's a number of layers that we have to cut through in order to just get to a place of being open and honest and
Facts.
transparent
Yeah.
with each other on some everyday type shit where we have an issue or a problem in our life. And it's not because black men are inherently or genetically unable or unwilling to do such a thing. It's the fact that we have so much fucking trauma due to the oppression that we've expressed face in our lives that it makes it difficult for us to be open and vulnerable. And in order to have a strong friendship or a strong relationship, there has to be a level of vulnerability and transparency there.
Mhm.
So if I'm constantly being bombarded all throughout the world, everywhere I turn and everywhere I look, so I walk around constantly on the defensive, it makes it difficult for me to open myself and make strong connections and new relationships. And then when you have add the fact that some of us are in different stages of our maturity, regardless of age.
Yep.
So some of us who have been through traumatic experience and have done the work and been to therapy and done all those things may be in a more open space to have more transparent, authentic relationships. But we're dealing with black men who have not been able to do that work. And I don't like when we try to compare the gender thing because I think black men tend to bond over similar interests and it often remains in that particular spot. I think the difference with women, particularly black women, interest may be the thing that gets them in the door. That may be the thing that connects them initially. But then what happens is turns into a friendship because women tend to be more open and transparent
Yeah.
to a larger degree than men are. So I just think that's a real difficult thing to try to compare the two. But overall, I look at my own life. Within the past 10 years, I've probably made less than a handful of new friends in 10 years.
Facts.
And I think it's a whole nother science that goes along with this. I don't know how many friends you're supposed to have. Are you supposed to have a bunch of friends?
Right.
All
Right.
these
Right.
other variables. And what does it mean if you don't have a large segment of male friends?
Right.
Does it
Right.
mean that you're a piece of shit because you have a lot of male friends? What is the outcome and the standard? But I think it becomes very difficult for Black men for a variety of reasons to develop strong relationships with other men. It's not an easy thing. And I don't think it was an easy thing when we were younger either. I just
Yeah.
think that we were probably more naive and more brazen back then to just fuck with people than we are now. Now we're a little
Yeah.
bit more mature and we're a little bit more guarded.
Yeah. 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 It's a very interesting dilemma. It's a very, very interesting dilemma. Especially there was a one of the subjects in the article was talking about how he has a handful of friends and he calls them his friends, but none of them know anybody from his family. I don't think that they, outside of their interactions with sports and video games or whatever, that they go out and just communicate, if you get what I'm saying, like without the barrier of sports
Yeah.
being or video games being the attention focal point, right? And it became the way this subject talked about it. It was very interesting because he also had a relationship problem and he finally broke down and talked to one of his friends about it. And there was just this, and the subject was a black dude. There was just this gulf or this gap, like the person really just couldn't grab onto it. And I think partially because you can't just expect someone to act a certain way after you've dropped down that wall suddenly, right? I know that we've had this conversation off air before regarding our own personal issues and conversations. What is a friend? How do you categorize a friend, right? And then how do you treat a friend? Is a friend somebody that you just bear everything to, or is it certain things? Because I know I have an issue, me personally, that if I'm going to take on, my mom would always tell me, everyone has their own cross to bear. There's people that out there that you trust enough or that you're comfortable enough with that can help you to bear it. If I care for someone, like deeply care for someone as a friend or calling them family, I don't want them to bear that burden. So I tend not to talk to people for the most part. My wife always tells me I'm probably the most unsocial person that she knows, because to be very honest with you, I don't know how to cultivate or to build those relationships. They just happen to happen. I don't know. It's like I said, it's a very tough very tough situation to try and square, man. It's like I said, I don't know how to call it, man. It's very, very difficult.
But I think it's difficult, and I think for many of us, the reason why it's so difficult is because we have not done the work internally to make it easier and us accessible externally. So a lot of times, the reason why we as men fail to have strong relationships with other men our own age is because often we didn't have a strong relationship with the men in our lives that we should have had a strong relationship. So our father figures, our uncles, older brothers, we had faulty, flawed, fucked up relationships with them, which typically puts us on guard. But a lot of us, we end up developing and we have a strong moral character, and we're usually good husbands and good providers and all those types of things. But when it comes to developing relationships and being open and vulnerable with other men, that's not some shit that we're willing to do because of the unresolved component that we have when it comes to our fathers. I, for one of the reasons why I struggle with making relationships with other men is because for years I hated older Black men because I felt like all the motherfuckers was flawed. They weren't consistent. They weren't able to keep their word. I could not find one strong, viable, strong older black men that I can look to model and then they want to hold me accountable for shit that I'm doing. Like, motherfucker, you doing worse. So in me, that developed a sort of defense mechanism. So I'll have great relationships with men. But when I get to a point where I'm giving, and pouring in and pouring in and pouring in, and you are not doing the work to somehow acknowledge that you want to pour in and meet me in that place to cultivate that relationship, it's a natural reaction for me to want to pull back. And I just think it's so nuanced and so difficult to determine why black men particularly can't develop or choose not to develop strong relationships. But then again, what is the potential outcome for black men not having strong friendships? What does that mean for us in the future? You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like I said, I think that, and I can only speak for myself, even though I know that other black men, because I've had this conversation with other guys before. Earlier, when I had my birthday this year, we did that little Zoom call or whatever, right? And I know that I look at my wife when she talks to her friends on the phone. My wife, and maybe I don't want to be gender biased, okay? Women typically are.
You're misogynistic. Go ahead.
I know, and I'm going to get all the letters for it.
And you hate white people.
And on top of that, add icing to the cake. But when my wife talks to her friends, and I know women typically, there's the stereotype that women are typically this way.
Right.
My wife can be on the phone with them for an hour plus,
right,
without batting an eye.
Right.
Folks got on this Zoom call to celebrate my birthday with me, and I was just like,
"Oh, you was ready to go within the first 5 minutes,
nigga." 5 minutes. I was like, "Okay."
All right, what's up? You good? You good? All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm gonna be open and transparent. You guys are my brothers, man. I'm gonna keep it all the way funky with you.
Right.
Like, I felt it like it was itching my skin. Like, I didn't know what to do with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it made me feel bad because I know these people came to celebrate me, but at the same, I didn't have that thing in me to be like it made me feel uncomfortable. Like, I couldn't talk to any one of you guys for more than fucking 10 minutes.
Man.
And that's even I didn't have any.
Wait, look, I can relate. I can relate because my wonderful wife threw a birthday, a 40th birthday party for me. Or was it 45? I think it was 40th or 45. And I hadn't had a birthday party in like, I don't know, 20, 25 years. You know, I don't care about that stuff after I'm 13.
Right. Right.
You know, but she threw a big old party here at the house. She invited like 15, 20 of my folks and everything. And I was in such shock that they all made it and they were there. It felt great. But I remember at one point, you know, I mean, granted, I was, you know, reading everybody and everything, but at one point I kind of retreated. With one of my boys who I hadn't seen in a long time. I said, yo, you want to see the lad? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, and I was like, damn, you know, and I saw that look on my wife's face. Like, where are you going? Listen, granted, I wasn't gone long. I was not gone long
from the article.
But I should not have done that.
Listen, this is a quote from the article. It says, because of this, many men have probably had a harder time than women figuring out how to adapt their friendships in a pandemic that is keeping them apart. Quote, the rules for guys pursuing other guys for friendships are not clear. Guys don't want to seem too needy. True. What do you think about that?
It's true.
It sounds weird, right?
It sounds weird, but it's true.
How do you pursue a relationship with a friendship with another guy?
My God, I don't
know. Like, in my time on Earth, I have never done such a thing. I don't know what the fuck that looks like. I don't know another brother
I put it this way:
a friendship with another
guy. Like, you see what I'm saying? Real quick, I don't want to make it seem like that's a bad thing.
No, wait.
But it just seems so foreign to me.
Wait. No, I think there might be one close equivalent. It's usually like when circles bump into each other, and you're like, you know, your circle bumps into your man's circle, and the cats are chopping it up, and all of a sudden somebody's like, oh yo, I remember that.
Okay.
I know what you mean. Then, that's kind of how it happened when Circle's in Iraq. Now the bad side is when Circle's in Iraq.
But ain't no fucking
shit ain't cricket
in there. I'm scrolling through, swiping left on friendship Tinder.
Yeah.
Why do you gotta make this seem so perverted, man? We're talking about friendship.
That's the closest that we'll come to. You know what I'm saying? That's the closest when my circle bumps into your circle. You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
Dude, like I said, it just seems so, and maybe we're the bad guys because that just seems wild to me. I'm not gonna lie. I bought this dude Elgin a fucking housewarming gift, right? And for like a week before I bought the gift, I was like, should I buy this shit for this nigga? Like I don't want to come across as being I debated buying the gift for the dude, and my wife was like, he's your friend, right? I was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know what this is. And she's like, nigga, just buy the damn gift for the
for my dude's first home, for my homie's first child. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I would definitely feel like, I want to mark the occasion with something. You know what I mean? Especially for my homie for like 10, 15 years, and he may have gone through hell to get the house and all that. You know what I'm saying? I would definitely get him something for that.
I don't know, man. And like I said, the whole thing about even just having this conversation about male on male friendship.
Women would have a field day with this. Women would be carrying us up over this shit. We're gonna your wife is gonna be cracking up. Your wife is gonna be cracking up.
Don't do that because we're gonna have certain people sending us letters that you being very
ladies.
Don't do that.
Ladies,
we good over here. We good over here. Don't do that.